Ready?
Ready?
Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Snitchin'. It's your host, Kristen.
And Brittany, get ready for the best part of your day.
It's Wednesday, a very special Wednesday, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we have a very on theme guest with us today. Joining us is, you all know Mish, one of the snitches. She's been on the pod. We have with us her husband, Nelson. Welcome, Nelly.
Hey, Kristen. Hey,
Hey,
Brittany.
Nelly.
It's so fun to be on here with you guys and talk snitching and talk about my
Cooking.
experience. Yep.
Yeah, we should say it's on brand because obviously we do have Thanksgiving tomorrow. This isn't a Thanksgiving themed episode, but obviously the focus being on food for anyone
Works
who
out.
works out. For anyone who remembers Michelle's episode, we talked all about cooking, things that you can do if you're like a novice in the kitchen. And a lot of her tips came from Nelson because Nelson's actually a professional chef. And that's really what we're going to talk about today is his kind of journey through his career. And yeah, it's going to be really great. So we're excited to learn because everyone knows Brittany and I don't cook.
We do not cook. The easier, the better. But yeah, I feel like you and Mish, like I have like one thing to say. It's that like it's such a waste that you guys like are married because you're both so good at cooking. It's like when two rich people get married, It's like what a waste.
Well,
Give it
I
to someone
was
like me.
really lucky that when we, first started dating, right off the bat, I realized that she had a lot of talent in the kitchen and a lot of interest. And so that actually, made me like her even more. And yeah, so it
Cute.
worked out.
Love Mish.
I think she might have talked about it, but she's definitely told me that the first time she cooked for you, she was stressed. I mean, I would be stressed, but she nailed
Same.
it.
I think she made like Indian, I want to say it was chicken tikka masala
Oh,
recipe that she got from her like childhood friend's mom, who eventually we actually went to India with their family. So it was like a really tried and tested recipe that, I think anyone could have nailed. And it actually, yeah, that was how we started off.
Go Mish. That's impressive. Nelly, what is your plan for the holiday tomorrow? Are you in charge of the meal?
I'm in charge of most of the meal. So my brother's in town and we're gonna get everything together, roast the turkey, make the mashed potatoes, and do the stuffing. It's gonna be a really simple Thanksgiving compared to ones we've done in the past. So I tend to do like a really elaborate Thanksgiving because it's probably one of my favorite holidays, or actually my favorite holiday to cook on. So I've done goose in the past, I've done ducks, I've done like ribeye roasts, and it always tends to be just way too much work for the 7 people that are eating.
mm.
It's going to be a little bit simpler this year.
Nice.
You say simple. To me, it's probably highly complex. So
Yeah.
Well, the key is just like I think with, a lot of things is that as long as you have a simple plan, and you start a couple days ahead and just, knock things off your list one by one, then ideally the day of, you're just putting stuff in the oven. Then it's all done at the same time and we can eat.
One day we'll get there, Britt. What are you preparing for your family tomorrow? Anything?
me?
Yes, you.
Oh. We have to bring an app to Chris's aunt. So Chris is making mini hot dogs, like the pigs in a blanket. And
Score.
then we have to bring a dessert to my parents, which I still have to figure out. I don't know. I'm going to make cookies or something.
We are so on the same page. I am in charge of an app and a dessert. Of course, I went and bought a pre-made pie. I got apple pie and then some mini desserts. I love the mini desserts. And then for the app, I got pre-made shrimp. But everyone knows that's what I'm bringing, so there's no surprises. So
Yeah.
I feel
We have other
confident.
strengths. We have
other strengths. Exactly. We're just going to lean into those. But let's get into it. Let's talk about Nelly's cooking journey and experience. And just for reference, as someone who frequently eats over at Nelson Michelle's house, just to like paint the picture of the type of meals that these two are creating. I remember the last time, Nelly, that you might have made me dinner, you did French onion soup, which is one of my favorite meals.
I love French onion soup.
Oh, Brittany, this wasn't a regular French onion soup. The man had like braised, what was it, braised beef or something in it. It was so good. I can't even.
Damn.
there was beef and like some croutons with Gruyere cheese, I think, and it was really sort
Mm.
of like I think it probably was like 10 onions, cooked down, so it was a really rich dish, but I love French onion soup too. It's one of my favorites. So
10 onions.
yeah,
That sounds
I
brutal
don't
to
make it
cut up.
often because it's a long process. So
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
but when Kristen comes over, got to do something special.
It's so good. It's so appreciated. So, okay, so let's go back to the beginning. When did you first realize that you loved cooking?
I think I probably was just sort of around it a lot when I was growing up. Growing up in Jamaica, we had a cook like a lot of families do. This lady was home with us all day and sort of making meals for, like our lunches and then like cooking cooked lunches and dinners every single day. So she was in the kitchen a lot, and us being, home after school, we were around her a lot. And I think that's probably where I absorbed it. But I think when I started to really like it was probably in high school. After like football and track practice, we would always, if we went back to my house, everyone was always starving, and I probably was the most competent around, the stove and oven at that point. So I was always I'd make like big like pasta dishes, or like we'd
Mm.
fried chicken after school. And so my mom would get home from work. It'd be like 6 or 7 o'clock. There'd be a giant mess in the kitchen and 5 or 6 guys just there. And, she'd kick everyone out. And then my brother and I would be, doing dishes for the next 45 minutes. But I think that's when I really sort of, it kind of grew on me. And I realized that I could, cooking for other people, make them happy. It made me happy. And that's probably where it started.
So cool.
That is cool. I also didn't realize, and we should say, I guess, for context, you grew up in Jamaica, Nelly. When did you move to Massachusetts?
So I moved to Massachusetts in 2001, that summer. So it was the summer before sixth grade. And before that, from when I was born until then, I lived in Jamaica in a small town called Brownstown. And it's essentially, I mean, nothing like it really exists where we live now, but it's like a small market town of a few thousand people, but it's in a really agricultural area in the hills. And it's like the sort of the biggest town in the area. So there's a big market there. And so it's really bustling every day. And especially on like Saturdays, people come from all over with their goods to sell in this big market. And, all the other services that they would need, like the banks and the hardware stores and the agricultural stores, and they're all sort of there. So that's where I grew up, and I was there until fifth grade. Yeah.
Cool.
I like always forget that. And that's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that a lot of families have like a cook at home. So that's
Yeah.
pretty common.
Yeah, it's I mean, for us, I think, having sort of two probably professional parents that grew up or that studied in Europe and had sort of like professional jobs is a little different than the average Jamaican in that town. We had a cook, we had a gardener, we
Nice.
had all that. But to me, I mean, it was just sort of my life. Other than that, I was still sort of one of the boys in the neighborhood. So running around barefoot, climbing trees, playing cricket and soccer, and sort of, I was just a pretty carefree kid.
That must have been a bit of a culture shock. I mean, we're going a little off script here, but like
Yeah.
coming to Massachusetts from Jamaica in sixth grade, like I'd be like, what's going on
Also,
here?
like right before 9/11.
Yeah, so it was
interesting.
right before 9/11. So we came at the end of July and we enrolled in school. And yeah, 9/11 happened a few days later. So
Your parents are probably like, "What the fuck? We just moved here."
yeah,
Seriously.
well, no, it was
Kids are already
insane
getting called out of school.
well, exactly. So I was like, this is like my third day in school, right? We had
Yeah.
9/11, I think, happened on a Tuesday. So we had like 1 or 2 days of school the week before that. Then it's like Tuesday morning, we're in homeroom. And long story short is the teacher leaves for like an hour. He gets a call like on the phone. He leaves for like an hour. So we're all just sitting there. he comes back and immediately we can tell that his, something's wrong. And, we get called to the auditorium. We sit there for another couple hours. We can hear the fighter jets because they were flying so
Yeah.
low
Mm.
because, a couple of the planes had left from Boston. I had no idea what was going on, but eventually we left school and yeah, we all walked home and I have this really vivid memory of just turning the TV on and that's all that was like on the TV. And then eventually my brother and I, we were pissed because it was, every day, every channel, it's just 9/11 stuff. And, none of our shows were like on.
You're like, I
So
just
we,
moved
it,
here.
it kind of grew like, we were sort of like had a child's perspective of it, but
Definitely unique
Interesting.
timing. Yeah. So, okay. So you come here, you realize in high school that you like to cook, you like to make food for other people, makes them happy. And when was it from there? Did you go to culinary school right away? Like what was the next step there?
so the next step was fast forward. I went to college and I didn't finish college. So I was at home when I was 21 and I was living back at my mom's and I was working in, a couple different restaurants, just kind of turning my wheels. I was working, but I was like not really happy. And I came up with this plan to go to culinary school. Well, I started looking into culinary schools, and the schools here were, 20 grand a year. But if
Right.
I was looking in Hungary where they're about 10 times less,
Smart.
and I sort of made this plan to move to Hungary and enroll in culinary school and maybe live there a couple years
Mm,
and work. And so that's what I did. So in end of 2014, I moved there.
very cool.
It was like a 2 year adult education program. So it was a culinary program for adults. I was actually probably one of the youngest people there. So a lot of people were going back to school. They had kids. They were already working
Mm,
in other jobs.
That's interesting.
So we went to school from like 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., 4 days a week.
tough hours.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it gets you used to the hours of sort of, I guess,
Mm,
working in a restaurant because those are kind of restaurant hours. And I was already sort of used to it, and I'm a night owl anyways by nature.
Same.
So yeah, that was I actually, so working in Hungary was like the part of the experience that really sort of like catalyzed my sort of interest and love and wanting to be a chef. I worked at this really cool place called Chef Parade. Essentially, they're a big tourism company. They're in a lot of different sectors there, but they do culinary classes for, they do corporate trainings, they do classes for, if you wanted to go with your husband and learn about a certain type of food, they had a winery, they had like a barbecue program. So I got a
Cool.
job there working at their main campus. Like there was like a 3 course lunch program because it was in the middle of this big sort of office like park. And so I worked under a Scottish chef named Paul Meisner, who was this kind of a crazy ex-Marine that married a Hungarian girl, moved there, but he was a chef in the Marines.
hmm.
So I worked under this guy for like a year, and that was a great experience.
I bet that
I
was a
lo-
pretty like got you in shape kitchen, I'm assuming, and a
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
military chef.
Yeah.
yeah, so our shifts were 6:30 in the morning until like 1 p.m. and which was a massive change for me because I before that I had never gotten up at 6:30, like 5:45 in the morning in my life.
Mm.
Listen,
See, those I would consider those good hours.
Yeah, so no, literally, and it was like kind of brutal to start, but then you get in a rhythm and it teaches you sort of a lot about what it means to be a cook and eventually a chef. It's about consistency and sort of like getting up maybe before everyone else and sort of putting the work in so that, when people come to lunch at 11:30, you've already been behind the scenes sort of getting everything together and so the guests can have a great experience.
yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting and like clear too, just from even the, 15 minutes we've been talking, like growing up in Jamaica, you moved to Boston, then you go to culinary school in Hungary. Like you've kind of had a wide spectrum of maybe
Yeah.
different foods you've been introduced to. right? Like, and we should say too, your mom originally from Hungary, correct? So
Yes.
there's like a tie there.
Yeah, so I have a lot of family that lives there, my uncles and my cousins and a few childhood friends. So it wasn't a total culture shock, and I had, support to lean on. And, on weekends we would have big picnics with the family, and we would travel together, and we went to the lake and traveled around with my buddies. So it was overall like a sort of, it's what I needed, when you feel stuck, you have to sort
Yeah.
of just jolt yourself, get yourself completely out of the situation that you're in and just kind of jump into the world. And that's kind of what I did.
I have a question. So like when you are applying for a cooking job or like a chef job, like do you like make a meal? What's that like?
Yes. So, yeah, if you're applying to a sort of a higher level position at a finer dining establishment, you typically you come in and work for the day or maybe 2 days, and it's called a stage. Sort of jumping, you're going from station to station. Typically, you help the cooks that are there and the chef for a few hours at each station, and then they sort of get to see what your skills are like. So they'll give you tasks to do, and then so you're there with them for the prep day, and then you work service with them. And typically during service, they just give you something really sort of monotonous and repetitive that every kitchen has its system. So they don't necessarily want to like plug you into,
Mm,
a main cog and you don't really know what's going on. So
mm.
then you sort of work with them for the whole day, which is typically like 10 hours. And you see if you like them and if they like you, because at the end of the day, you're going to be spending sometimes 40 hours a week with these people. So you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
you have you have to like them, you have to get a good vibe. And then if you're sort of applying to maybe like a sous chef position or higher, yeah, typically they'll ask you to sort of cook a one or two or maybe three dishes. Or if you're applying to be an executive chef, you'd probably cook like a whole, several courses for them.
An
Yeah, something.
executive chef being like the top dog, like number one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Sounds
Cool.
like a better process than regular interviewing, like how I would interview.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely feels like you get hands-on experience. I feel like
Yeah.
that's something that people, or I guess I didn't really think about until you're talking about this. Like in a kitchen, to your point, Nelson, there's a process. Every kitchen has a process. You're on your feet, long hours with everybody. Like I imagine that culture and your coworkers make a big difference. Like if you're working
Mm,
with kind of a jerk, I would imagine that that might affect your job more than maybe you or I, Britt, where it's like if
hmm.
they're like we might only have to see them for one meeting or something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right. Where I work now, everyone is sort of very, everyone's similar to me, where everyone has a kind of a laid back personality, but at the core of it, we're very hard workers, and we just we're pushing each other in subtle ways to sort of get better. It's a symbiotic relationship, because if one person isn't pulling their weight, or if one person is trying too hard, it's going to ripple through to you're only working
Yeah.
with 5 or 7 people. So you really have to sort of find the right balance. At the end of the day, when the doors open at 5 and 100 people are going to come eat at your restaurant, the work still needs to get done. So they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They can't
Hmm.
really see into the kitchen. So whether or not the service runs smoothly is up to, the 5 of us or the 4 of us. And so it's really important that we are kind of all on the same page. And yeah.
I think that, we see shows like The Bear, or I mean, I know we've watched too, like Bravo shows Below Deck, where it's like a lot of chefs have this maybe reputation for being really passionate and like emotions can
Mm.
get high. Do you think that's accurate or maybe like overblown in terms of just emotions running high? Because you are, like you said, having 100 people come in, you've got to get the food out. Like you got to work quickly and smoothly. What do you think?
I think I've worked with many different kinds of personalities, and I think in certain situations you do need the passion. You do need, I would say, an angry outburst from the head of the kitchen to get everyone back in line, because
Mm.
Mm.
situations can kind of get away from you. And sort of like, what's an example? we just need to stay focused throughout the day, right? If we're working towards a busy like Friday or Saturday night service, you have to come in with that mentality during the day and
Mm-hmm.
sort of like you have to sort of ramp up to like fourth or fifth gear early in the day. And that way, when the doors do open, you're not off balance, that you're already sort of operating at the speed you're going to need to operate at. And sometimes, especially with younger cooks, they can sort of get distracted or sort of you're standing there, you're doing the same thing for an hour straight, you haven't moved, and you're sort of, you need to be prodded, and different people react in different ways. And sometimes, a passionate outburst get people back on track. Sometimes they just need to be reasoned with. Sometimes you need to yell at them. I've seen people react different ways to different sort of types of incentives. So you just really need to like know your team and just have a good relationship with them to know that, listen, if you do have to yell at someone, or if you do need to like speed them up, that they're not going to hold that against you, and they're going to come back, when the service ends, that's it. And then the next day you start fresh. That's the great part about working in a kitchen, is that the next day you just start fresh.
Yeah, that's true. So like, how accurate is The Bear? Do you watch that?
I've seen a few episodes of it, and I think I definitely have worked in kitchens like that where there's sort of those different
Hotheads.
personality. Yeah, the hotheads, and like something breaks and then this random guy tries to fix it, but he makes it worse. And then like the person that's supposed to be doing something is outside smoking a cigarette, and that's how it functions. But I haven't watched past the first season, so I'm not really sure what happens.
So maybe there's not as much yelling as they portray, but
I feel like it's probably a little overblown. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always yelling.
They're always yelling. Okay, yeah. To be honest with you guys, I don't watch a lot of cooking shows just because when I'm at home, I prefer to watch something that's not work related.
Yeah.
And I find myself getting a little fired up when I watch these shows, and I'm like, talking to the TV, and then my wife is like, okay, you need to relax. So that's probably why I don't watch a lot of cooking shows at home.
Yeah.
That's fair. But speaking of cooking shows, and then we definitely need to talk a little bit about Moonbar, where you work. But one fun fact about Nelson is that you applied to be on Top Chef. Is
so cool.
So
I didn't know that.
Cool, Nelly.
Yeah, I applied to be on Top Chef last year, and I got a few steps into the process. To apply, you have to be recommended by someone that's been on it. And my boss now, Carl Dooley, was on the show about 10 years ago, and he actually made it pretty far. He made it to number 4. I think every year he sort of gets these emails, do you have anyone you want to recommend? And I think he finally thought like I was ready and I could probably, if I got on the show, I could do well. So he asked me if I wanted to apply, and I said yes. So, I went through the application process, which is, the first part is like a 200 question questionnaire, which is the most brutal part. After that, it's just like, it was like, took me like 4 hours to do. You have to, all this information, photos of your food, sample menus, but then they call you and you're interviewed by this casting agency. It's like a few Zoom calls, and then I sort of made it through 2 or 3 Zoom calls, and I was waiting for about 3-4 more weeks after that. And it was really biting my nails. I was like, could be either good or bad. And the next step would have been that they would call you out to do an in-person audition out in LA. And they called me and said, you're not getting an audition. So, but I'm going to apply again next year. So
that's intense.
February, I'm going to do the application process all over again. I have a few tweaks I think I can make. Yeah, I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah. I feel like it's different now than when your boss was on it 10 years ago, because now like you could go on it and then become famous, like be an influencer. You know what I mean?
I mainly wanted to be on it because I think the top prize is $250,000. So I was like, oh man, I can't not apply, because what if
Doesn't
I get
suck.
far? And and a lot of people that get on that show, like you said, Brittany, they do even if they don't make it far, they do become influencers. They do have a positive, it is positive for their career advancement.
Attaching that to your name is huge. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like obviously in the culinary world, like you get these awards like a Michelin, a James Beard. Once you have that, I feel like you have it for life. Top Chef, I don't know what you would say if you think it's like the same level, but I do think it gives you a sense of like,
I mean, probably more normal people know what that is rather than like high ranking
people who work in the
awards.
industry.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a well-recognized brand. A lot of cities now have Top Chef alumni, including Boston. We don't have any winners, but we've had a lot of chefs that are working in Boston that have applied to be on the show or been on the show and have done really well. Karen Akunowitz, who from The Fox and the Knife,
Oh,
she was on the same season as my boss, and although she didn't make it as far as him, I think it was a huge plus for her. And she has like 6 or 7 restaurants now, and was just given a gourmand recommendation by the Michelin Guide in the awards last week. So it can be the start of something great and very lucrative.
totally. And like it might be fun too, just to be around all of those like chefs at that level too. Like all of you guys
Yeah.
being, the best in
Yeah,
your field.
from what Carl said, he said it's like super fun. It's really intense. He said it's like a work day, but it's sort of obviously, every day is really long. You shoot the show over the course of a month, and you're working every day. And there are all the challenges, and you're traveling around, and you're sort of like there's a lot of obstacles because you're in a different kitchen, different city. You're working with people that you've never worked with before. And so it seemed like really fun, and that was the main reason why I wanted to do it. Because I was like, I love a challenge, and I also love working, just love cooking with people, and I love learning from other people. So I was like, this looks like it could be a super fun thing for me to do.
Putting good vibes out there, good juju for next round.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next round, exactly.
And
Who
if you need
knows? Maybe.
anyone for Romy, if you need someone to go out there and just like be at the taping
Yeah,
and maybe,
Oh
like
yeah.
listen, me and Brittany are available. Just saying.
I would
yeah.
love that.
Well, so when you're on the show, actually, this is what I heard from Carl. You're not allowed to have any contact with like the outside world.
Oh,
So, so
Yeah.
literally that, I don't know if they take your phone away, but like, you sign a contract and stuff, and you can't really talk about it. I'm sure you can call your family and
Yeah.
stay updated. But for example, the people that get kicked off, so like 20 people start at the start of the season, and the people that get eliminated, they don't just get to like fly back home. They put you up at the airport hotel essentially, and you have to wait until the show's over because they
Ugh.
don't want people coming back to their city and potentially like the end of the show. They don't want
like Big
people to
Brother.
yeah, like giving it away. If you're kicked off, you might be in an airport hotel for like 3 weeks if you're kicked off early, which is doesn't
Damn.
sound fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so talking about though where you do work now, because we haven't really talked about like where you worked around Boston. You came back from culinary school. How long were you in Hungary? 3 years?
I was there for almost 2 years.
2 years.
So yeah, school was about a year and a half, and I worked, and then I sort of stayed a little longer and traveled around. But yeah, I came back at the end of 2016, and I immediately, so before I came back, I applied to a few jobs. So I had a few stages lined up for when I came back. And so this was November of 2016. And I took a job at Toro in the South End, which
Hmm.
is a Basque Spanish restaurant. And I was there for 3.5, almost 4 years. I worked there for. And I started off there as a cook, and I worked my way through all the stations. I was promoted to sous chef, and then I left during the pandemic.
And now you're at Moonbar, but
Yes.
well, so Moonbar is what do you would say like sister restaurants to Mooncusser?
We're an offshoot of Mooncusser. So in 2021, I started working at Mooncusser. I was hired by Carl to be his sous chef, and they were reopening after being closed for like a whole year because of the pandemic. It's a tasting menu only restaurant, and at the time we did, I think, 6 courses, and that was a whole new experience for me, sort of working tasting menu, fine dining setting to that degree, working with all these really really high-end ingredients, and we changed our menu every month at that point. So that was like a new experience for me. So you're sort of you're constantly pushing to, you know, perfect this menu that you've done, but you're also thinking ahead to the next menu and potentially the next menu. So it's very seasonal. You're working with
Mm.
really awesome quality ingredients. You know, we live in New England. We have the best fish in the world. We have access to some of the best beef and lamb nearby from Vermont and New York. And, you know, not to mention all the stuff that we get that's imported. So it was a really awesome experience. And
And
as
can
the
we just
restaurant, yeah,
pause
sorry.
on that for, oh, no, no, you're good. You're good. But just to pause on that for a second, because I feel like you're not going to like say it, Nelson. We just have to say for anyone who maybe isn't from the Boston area, Mooncuster is one of the top restaurants in the city, one of the top fine dining,
Yeah, well known.
very well known. And it's very much like, I mean, you already said it, right? It's a tasting menu. So it's kind of like an experience when you go there. I think me and Michelle, whenever we go, our favorite thing is that you have one of two options for 4 courses, 3 courses.
Yeah,
And
yep.
we will just get, each of us will get one full side of the menu so we can taste everything. And it's phenomenal. So just wanted to, just do a little like extra brag on that because it's
Thank you.
really, really good food.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so as the restaurant grew, we became busier. We were able to hire more staff. We extended our hours, and after about 2 years, we were doing really well, and we were able to open up an offshoot of Mooncaster called the Moonbar, which is just in the space below. It's in the same building, but having been at Mooncuster for, almost 2.5 years at that point, we had developed a lot of recipes that, food that we love to cook, but we necessarily couldn't put on a fine dining, French technique sort of Japanese influence menu.
Mm.
You know, foods that were like really sort of fun and spicy and had a lot of texture and had a lot of kind of like more obscure, unique ingredients that maybe the average person wouldn't cook with every day. So, we had this huge recipe book of stuff that we tried and tested, and it was a perfect start to open Moonbar. Our flavors are sort of like South Indian and a lot of Caribbean influences and Latin influences, and we have, a few African ingredients on the menu. So it's like a lot of the ingredients that we couldn't necessarily use on our fine dining menu,
Mm.
we have incorporated that into a concept for Moonbar. And
Very
yeah,
flavorful,
Unique.
a lot of
Yeah.
heat. Yeah, it's good.
yeah, a lot of heat, a lot of crunch. Really get to, when you're sort of not necessarily constricted by, you have so many different cuisines and countries that we can work with. And living in Boston, we have a huge amount of, we have a lot of Indian grocery stores, we have a lot of South Asian grocery stores, Ecuadorian grocery stores, Caribbean grocery stores. So there's a huge amount of ingredients and kind of flavors we could work with. And it's been a really, really fun experience
Cool.
moving down there, sort of becoming, getting promoted to actually running my own kitchen.
Ooh,
And yeah, it's been awesome couple of years. So
love
What's
it.
your favorite thing to cook?
oh my God, I don't know. If I was gonna cook for myself, I would probably make a steak. I love to
Mm.
grill. I love grilling steak. Just a simple steak with some kind of like a reduction, maybe like a glaze, and then with mashed potatoes. That's a really like
Mm.
comforting food for me.
Making me hungry.
Yeah, I actually love making clam chowder. So my wife
Oh.
doesn't like clam chowder, but that's honestly one of my favorite foods. Very New England, and it's something I learned to cook when I was young, and I don't get to make it as often as I could. I
Oh.
want to, but
So would you say, because one of my favorite icebreaker questions for anyone who might, just be in a situation where you need to have an icebreaker instead of a fun fact, no one likes that. what's your last meal, but you have to do all the courses. So app, entree, dessert, and drink.
Oh,
And I
like if
feel
you
like,
were on death row.
yes. And I feel
Death row.
exactly. And I
Oh
feel
my
like we have
goodness.
two for you. Like we have an app clam chowder,
Yeah.
steak and mashed potato entree.
Yeah. And then probably for my drink, I would do a big Negroni, like a 16-ounce Negroni.
I've just been getting it.
Solid.
Yes. So good.
Yeah.
Maybe a nice Caesar salad with anchovies.
What about
Um,
dessert? Do you do desserts?
Oh
oh
yeah.
yeah, it would have to be like chocolate cake or chocolate mousse with some kind of like cherries or raspberries. So yeah,
Yum.
I
Yeah.
love
I
chocolate
think
cake.
Moonbar there, I feel like you guys also have well, first off, the cocktails also are so good. But you have really good desserts, I think, at Moonbar and Mooncusser. I feel like that's always some of what I look forward to the most.
Yeah, we that was sort of another area where I got to, experiment and grow as a cook was learning to, working pastry. I hadn't had much experience with it before working at Mooncusser and having to come up with, not me personally, but having to sort of help and being on the creative process of coming up with 12 dessert menus every year. I learned a lot. And
Wow.
yeah, for example, right now, we have we have rice pudding on our menu, which is
Mm.
it's not just any rice pudding. We have these fresh coconuts which we bust open. We take the water and the meat out, and that's what we use to cook our rice pudding with, and then we serve
Oh,
it sort of back in our halved coconut shell. And it's sort of like kind of like a Moonbar touch to a
sounds good.
simple rice pudding. We have a beautiful chocolate mousse on our menu with like a chili cocoa dusting, but also local cranberries right now. So sort of like theme for the kind of style of Moonbar, but also trying to use as many delicious New England ingredients as possible.
I like how you
Uh,
bring in the New England aspect.
No, you got it. I mean, we live in an amazing part of the country where we have access to like not just the seafood and the meat, but like we have these awesome farms that are there's so many local farms here in Massachusetts, over the
Yeah,
border in Vermont and Western Mass, and we
it's
get
true.
we get a lot of the suppliers that we use, a lot of them have relationships with these small farms, which is great for the small farmer, but also gives us access to like in season kind of like produce that's at its peak, which is really fun for a chef and
Yeah,
exciting. So
probably makes a big difference.
yeah.
do you feel like when you go into other restaurants, is it a different experience for you being a chef? Like, do
Yeah.
you judge it differently or are you able just to like disconnect and just enjoy it like any other person?
Anytime someone else cooks for me, I enjoy it. I do have a critical eye, like every time I cook for myself or I eat someone else's food or someone else cooks for me, I'm always sort of, I come at it, I probably from a more critical angle than the average person does. But whenever someone else cooks for me, I'm just happy to sit down and enjoy it. So I'm never, I never complain. I never send food back, even if it's sort of totally off.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
I've never done that and try to just enjoy this 2 hours where I don't have to cook it. So,
yeah, fair, fair.
Maybe we wrap up with a little bit of advice. We have two questions for
I could use
this.
some.
We always, it's 100%. Novice cooks, don't know much. Any like quick tips that you think would be helpful for anyone who's trying to be a better cook who maybe doesn't have a lot of experience? Question one.
yeah, I think like if you don't have a lot of experience, but you do want to cook more, I think you should just practice every day. And I think when you go to the supermarket, always buy one or two things that you've never bought before and try to
Mm,
like incorporate it into something that you already know how to cook and then incorporate this new ingredient into into something that you would have used
that's a good one.
and see and just kind of like the more you cook and eat, the better you're going to be at it. So it's just practice really. And there are a lot of helpful sort of, we have the internet now, and there's a lot of information out there, a lot of bad information. But I think, like, for example, when I'm in a pinch, I use the New York Times cooking app, which
Mm.
has they have really tried and tested recipes on there that are sort of well reviewed and approachable.
Good to know.
And yeah,
Good to know.
so use a good source on the internet, practice a lot, and every time you cook, try to use one or two new things that you haven't used before so that you can see how the flavors combine and see whether you like it or not. And yeah, just try to have like fun doing it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then what about someone who does want to pursue this professionally? Anything that you wish you knew when you were younger starting off?
Mm.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think to be a good cook, you have to be a good planner. So
Yeah.
actually, when you or I go out to eat and we sit down at a restaurant and we order something, and 20 minutes later, this beautiful dish shows up, and you're like, wow, how did this appear? Before that, for several hours or sometimes a day or two or three, cooks in the back are sort of working towards making that happen. So if you need to sort of visualize what you want in the end and plan plan accordingly. So you want to, in order to be able to cook this dish in 10 minutes from when the customer orders it, there's several hours may
Yeah.
go into the planning and the prepping. So you have all your components there in front of you so that you can build your dish in a pan or in a pot and serve it. And also, one thing I didn't know, but I learned very quickly, is that when you're a cook, you spend about 2 hours a day cleaning. So
Oh, I believe
forget the
that.
organizing, forget the chopping, forget the actual cooking. You are cleaning a lot. So you better like scrubbing and wiping and sweeping and mopping, because you're constantly doing that throughout the day. In a kitchen at the end of the night, everyone cleans for like an hour. So you better like cleaning.
Wow. An
That is
hour. Damn. I guess that makes
honestly,
sense.
yeah, that is good to know. And I feel like one of the things that like I've realized just from knowing you, but also even in this conversation, what you were saying about, sometimes you do need to shock the system for people because you are doing a lot of the same task repetitively for a long period of time. So, like, there's
Mm-hmm.
that component of it. But I also think it's really interesting that you're like on your feet all day. I think that's a
Yeah.
big plus of
Agree.
what you do. It's physically probably so taxing, but I mean, it's also, I have to like way better for you than sitting at a desk all day. So I think that's kind of just a
Yeah.
difference
Yeah,
in,
you have to like it, and it's not for everyone, but if you're sort of like a busybody like me, it's great.
yeah.
And I don't think I could ever really sit at a desk. Me sitting down for an hour right now is a lot for
Yeah.
me. So
Feel that.
I was gonna
Feel
say,
that.
Nelson, there's no way you would. That's funny.
But I'm a busybody. I'm a night owl, and I love eating, and I love traveling, and I love like learning about new cultures. And I think that's why I became a chef, is because all those things kind of came together, and they work for
I
me.
love
So
that.
Yeah.
Following your passion.
yes,
And I do think that's also why what you cook, like you can cook so many different things across the board, is because you are so like open to all those
Like
different types
legit.
of cuisines. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was so fun. I'm so glad you came on.
I
so much
know.
fun. This has been amazing. I just want to put this in there just because I've listened to Snitchin for a few months now, and the first time I heard Snitchin, I don't know if I've told you guys this, but I was listening to Spotify and my podcast ended, and all of a sudden Kristen's voice comes on, and I'm
Like,
at
ready?
work, like standing at my station. I'm standing at my station, and I'm like, "What the fuck's going on? Why is Kristen on Spotify?" And it must have been like one of your first one or two episodes, and it came into our queue because Michelle and I share Spotify. So
Oh my
And
God.
so
Wow.
that was like, I immediately texted Michelle. I'm like, why is Kristen on Spotify? So funny.
Good thing you
And
didn't chop your finger off or something.
since then, I've listened to a few episodes, and I just want to say you guys are doing a great job, and
Oh,
this has been
thanks.
a lot of fun. And maybe in a year, well, if I'm on Top Chef, I can be back and tell you guys all about it. So
Oh
And
yeah.
you heard it
Yeah.
here first. We'll have the inside scoop before
Yeah.
you're even on
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
Well, that was really sweet. Thanks, Nelson. It was so great
Yeah.
having you on. This was an awesome episode. We hope everyone enjoys and has a wonderful holiday week. We'll be back
Yeah.
on Friday with book club. So don't forget to tune in.
Make sure to like us, follow us, comment at us, friend us on social media at snitchinpod on TikTok and Instagram. Go to our website, www.snitchinpodcast.com, and tell everyone you know about us.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
bye.